Welcome to the First and 30 podcast. This is episode 56, and we are in the off season. What are we all about over here, Antonino?
As you know, we're two 30-something-year-old guys, and we're giving you 4 transactional downs in 30 business-like minutes of NFL football insight to get you through your day.
That's right. We're recording this on hump day, which means we're just going to release these episodes whenever we feel like it. Now, since we're in the off season, everything's lax and loose. We're getting into that summer vibe, right, man?
That's right. It's a fluid situation. We're going to give the news as it comes in, before and after key events. It's a loose situation. Right?
I know, and I feel like we're going to have to really try to keep a pulse on everything. Today in particular, it just seems like there was so much NFL news. I texted you earlier this afternoon, and I was like, dude, what is going on? Guys are getting cut. Guys are talking about getting trades. It's just wild already.
Yeah, rapid fire. My thumb has tendinitis from scrolling on X so much. Refresh. The news is pouring in, and we have all the rumors, all the inside scoops from all my inside sources ready for you today.
Okay, cool. Well, I'm ready to look into it and get deeper into all the insights. Before we do start this episode, though, Antonino, I'd be remiss if I didn't call some attention on what's currently going on in the backdrop of my screen here. I just have to ask you, man, are you not impressed with this display that I have going on?
It is a thing of beauty. Those helmets on the top left, as a kid, I collected all those helmets. That's what made me be a Bengals fan, is that those Bengal stripes on that little helmet you get from the grocery store. And then to top it off, you got a Charmander behind you over there, the best Pokemon of them all. It's a thing of beauty. You got neon lights. It's like a nightclub in the Ocasio house here, folks. A nightclub.
I am elevating. I love my new studio setup. I think it looks really cool. So, J Movement, go check it out on YouTube if you're curious. We're going to have to get you working with something like this soon too, man.
Yes, burrow-sized inflatables. I got to order that on Amazon for sure.
Oh, there we go. All right, dude. Well, I'm looking forward to this. Believe it or not, the NFL Combine occurred this past weekend. So for those of you who are not keeping a pulse on the Combine, I just want to preface, for some reason this season, it just kind of went under the rug for me. When we were prepping for this episode, I was like, wait, didn't the Combine already happen, Antonino? Did you get that same sense?
It flew by, and it did really go under the radar. I don't know if they weren't promoting it as much, or we were just exhausted from the Chiefs and Eagles being ran down our throats so much. We're like, let's detach from football. I don't know, but yeah, right under the radar.
Maybe. But it did happen this past weekend. 329 draft prospects made their way out to Lucas Oil Stadium. The drills that they do at the Combine, of course, the 40-yard dash, the broad jump, vertical jump, 3-cone drill, bench press, 20-yard shuttle, you name it. It all happened and went down this past weekend.
Yeah, they went to the Indianapolis Stadium over there in Indiana, in the middle of nowhere practically, and they were allowed fans to come in and watch the drill. So people were there, fans were there. You saw some claps after some 40-yard dash. Really interesting dynamic. But what I want to really zero in on here is that these are kids. They just graduated college. They're 20, 21, 22, maybe 23. These are young kids going out there, and they're getting measured up. They're getting sized up, height, weight, hand size.
That's a little weird, right? It's a little odd, man. It's a meat market.
Right, exactly. Like a meat market. And everything is very important to these scouts, because they're going to pour their organization, their money, their future on these players in the first round in the draft in April.
Okay. Yeah, it is a little bit bizarre when you think about it and put it into that context. It's like, hey, we're going to size you up in your Spanx basically right here in front of a bunch of other men, and we're going to critique your pecs and your body and everything. It's just so bizarre.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, man. So out of all these drills, do you have a drill in particular that you enjoy watching the most? And then on the inverse, which drill do you think you would excel at the most if you were to practice the Combine?
Oh,
or
man.
Participate in it?
My favorite one, if I'm a scout, my favorite one that I'm going to look at as far as evaluating is the bench press. You can't hide strength, all right? Strength is strength. As far as the 40-yard dash goes, on the inverse, they're in shorts and a t-shirt. You throw pads on them, that 40-yard dash time's not going to equate to the same when you have the helmet, pads, all that stuff.
So why do you think, though, with bench press, that's the only equivalent of strength? I mean, that's all they're doing, right? They're not like squatting or deadlifting. They're just showing, okay, I can press this amount of much weight like this many times. Like I'm guessing there's a science to it, though.
That's a good point, because that's just one movement from pushing right off your chest,
right.
But that's pure strength. And I like the fact that you can't hide that. That's strength. But like the number as far as speed goes, that's going to be completely different when they put pads on.
Which,
so 1-to-1.
You would think the NFL and the scouts, they would make players wear full pads and gear when they do these drills, because why are we evaluating them when they're not in the conditions that are going to be set when they're actually playing on Sundays? It just doesn't make sense, especially if I would have them wear pads when they're doing the bench press, maybe do some deadlifts as well as, all those big compound movements. Do the cone drills with pads. Like, that's all that really matters, right?
Yeah, there needs to. I love that. I love that idea. I feel like there needs to be change. And the fact that a lot of these players can opt out of the combine and choose not to even do half the stuff, and they could just do it on a pro day at their college campus at a later date where they might get a more favorable 40 time or more, home court advantage, if you should say.
Which I would do too. I mean, there was a handful of guys, though, like the top guys in this draft that just did not participate. Travis Hunter, who's expected to be a top 5 pick, the dual threat Heisman Trophy winner, did not participate. Both of the top quarterback prospects in this draft, Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward, they didn't participate in the combine and do throwing drills. The two of the top wide receiver prospects didn't participate. Probably the best player in this draft, Abdul Carter, he didn't even go for it. So it's like, maybe that's why this kind of flew under the radar for us.
Yeah, but some of these guys do show up just to make an appearance. They answer questions. And for one of these players, Shedeur Sanders specifically, it backfired. He answered some questions, and there was a team with the top 7 pick in the draft that specifically said he came off as arrogant. So he could lose some drafts. Yeah, I know, right?
Gosh, the son of Dion coming across as being arrogant. Who would have pegged him as the type?
For better or worse, that could hurt him in the draft. It could help him. Cockiness is confidence. So who knows?
Okay, so really quickly, talking about stock up, stock down in that vein, give me one name for a guy after the combine that you're getting a sense that their stock is starting to rise, that the scouts are really liking what they saw. And then on the inverse, give me a name that isn't treading too favorably right now.
All right, it's that time again. Last year, I had my man crush on Bo Nix. And
I remember.
I hit
Good
that
pick.
out of the
Good
park.
pick. Yeah.
Yep. This year, it's Ole Miss quarterback Jackson Dart.
Oh.
I love this kid in college for Ole Miss. He threw the ball all over the yard, put up huge numbers. He had a great pro day. I think he's going to translate that to the pros, and he's going to be a stud. As for who dropped, interior linebacker for Alabama, Tyler Booker. He has all the height and weight, all the tangibles, but he came in almost last in every single 40-yard dash. He was last in for all the offensive linemen, broad jump, 3-cone drill, vertical jump. He was all last or second to last. So his stock plummeted like the Titanic.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I was hearing stock plummeting for quarterback out of Ohio State, Will Howard. He missed a bunch of throws downfield. He was hitting a bunch of the short stuff, but he just showed a lack of arm strength and just accuracy to hit outside of the numbers on some of the comeback routes. So his stock is plummeting, even though it wasn't really high going in, I thought. But on the stock up, man, you got to go with the 40-yard dash time. And the guy that led it for the wide receivers was Matthew Golden. You always see it. Whichever wide receiver runs the highest 40, he did a 4.29. Not the fastest ever. It was really fast.
Yeah.
Usually you just see that translate into higher draft prospecting there.
That's a heck of a time. Yeah, that's a name to look out for. Again, these are kids, so they could be a bust. They could be successful.
We'll
they
see.
could answer questions wrong. But we'll see. These kids, stock up, stock down. We shall see.
All right, man. Well, that was the combine. It happened. We'll see the draft in April. But for second down, let's move into this thing. We also had more big NFL deadline things occurring, and the franchise tag deadline occurred on Tuesday. So usually you see a flurry of action with guys getting tagged at, the market value of whatever the top 5 or top 10 dudes in their position are getting paid over this year or the past 5 years, depending on if it's a transition tag or exclusive tag, whatever it might be. We only had 2 guys get tagged, Antonino. Your guy, T. Higgins, he got the franchise tag for a second year in a row. And then offensive guard out of Kansas City, help me out. What was his name? Trey Smith. That's right. Trey Smith, $23 million for him. T gets $26 million. What's our reaction, though, to the franchise tag deadline?
I just think with the cap getting higher, with players getting paid more, it's the average of the top 5 players in that position. I feel like it's getting to the point where it's not worth it. That's why less teams are doing it. And I think what teams are doing now is they're putting a tag on someone, but that's just a placeholder. They're trying to make it so other teams can't poach them when free agency starts. That's what I think happened with T. Higgins. You give him the tag, it gives you more time to work out that long-term deal, or you could trade him later.
That's true. And I want to get back to T. Higgins here. So we'll spend some time with T because I think he's the biggest name out of the franchise tag. Obviously, Trey Smith, big name too. These were probably 2 of the top guys that were expected to become free agents. But there were some names that we were kind of anticipating, like Sam Darnold. He didn't get tagged. Some people were expecting it. Oso Odigizua, who's the defensive tackle for Dallas, he got an extension with $80 million, $58 million guaranteed. So we did see some moves where guys that were expected to get tagged, either their team came out and proclaimed, yeah, we're not doing it, or they just got a big extension. But with T. Higgins, man, what is the move now? Because I don't think this is done. Do you think he's actually going to play on this tag for another year? Or do you think the Bengals, what the options are, we try to give him an extension, or we try to do a tag and trade scenario? What do you think is most likely to occur out of those 3 options?
100% he is going to get a long-term deal. Burrow wants him there. We've shown we can put up over 40 points practically every game. We want him there. He's going to be there. The deal's going to get done. And just in this past week, we released D-tackle Rankins, offensive lineman Kappa, and today Sam Hubbard retired. So those 3 combined saved us $28 million in cap space. We got the 4th most, around $70 million now. We can sign T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, and Hendrickson if we want.
Really? All 3? And you think that's the path? Why not leave T on the – I guess if you give him an extension – do we think that he's going to be yielding more than $26 million for this upcoming season with an extension? Because that's the only way he's probably going to budge. Would he really be taking the short-term pay cut for long-term stability, or would he be taking the short-term, payout of 26 over long-term stability?
Yeah, at the end of the day, I want to make it clear, don't feel bad for T, even if he plays on the tag, because he's getting 25, 26, 27 million, 2 years now, last year and this year. That's 50 million for 2 years.
Well, no. So he's getting more this year than last year because the way that the tag, I've done my research into the tagging, man. So they get 120% bump in pay based off of the guidelines. So, based off of what last year was, T. Higgins is going to make 120% more than what he would have made previously. So the way that there's transition tags, exclusive, non-exclusive, so 3 types of tags, and based off of the market for the position, that determines like the average value of what a tag will be worth. So he's making good money this season, but he's lacking the stability long term. So.
Yeah, I think we're going to try and come up with a long-term deal, and it'll help us on the short term so it's not a $26 million cap hit this coming season. So we get that long-term deal, reduces the upfront cap hit. It's a win-win for both sides. He gets a long-term security. We get our guy and have room to sign other players.
Okay. We'll see how it goes. Do you have anything else with T? Anything else with franchise tags before we hop into our half-minute halftime here?
I think teams can find ways to make money. The Bengals have done just that. They can sign players if they want all 3 of their stars. To be determined. One player I want everyone to keep in mind, Sam Darnold. He would have made round about $40 million. Will he get over or under that in the open market? We'll see.
We'll have to debate here, maybe after the half minute. Shouldn't we? All right, man. Why don't you go ahead and kick us off into the locker room?
All right, boys, huddle up. The offseason is here. We got a long road ahead of us, but stay tuned to the First and 30 podcast. We'll be with you all along the journey until spring training.
That's right. And we plugged this in the last episode. If you have any ideas that you want to contribute to the conversation, send us a DM, let us know. Also, we're giving away hats. So if you want a hat, just message us and we'll give you a hat. That's as simple as that. Like, just message and we'll give the hat away. So that does it. We're exiting the locker room, man. We're going to head into third down. And I'm excited because free agency is almost here. We have the big free agency pool that's getting set. There was a ton of action today with guys getting cut. Guys are demanding trades, but we have a pretty good idea of what the market's going to look like based off of where some things are falling into place now. So my question on this down, Antonino, let's break it up into two parts. The first part, I want to know who are your top maybe 3 guys that you think are available, and I'll kind of give you some of mine. And then who are some of the big name dudes, maybe some old heads that are out there. So how do we want to position this? You dictate it.
Yeah, I want to talk about the old heads. That's who I want to talk about. I want to talk free agency. All right. What is free agency? This is where you want to plug all your holes before the draft. If you have any huge vacancies, any huge weaknesses, you want to fill them. And who do you want to fill them with? These veterans who have been there, done that, have proven their worth. All right. So that's what we're going to do. There's a bunch of guys here. What's there not to like?
Okay. So in particular, are there any names? I mean, I was going through the list of free agents, man. And, if I were like, an unsuspecting fan, a casual fan, and I saw guys like, I don't know, Stephon Diggs available, Khalil Mack out there.
Khalil Mack.
Nick Chubb. Like, when I saw Nick Chubb, that was so under the radar. Did you know he was a free agent?
Right? Nick Chubb, Khalil Mack, DeMarcus Lawrence, 33 years old, Keenan Allen. He's been doing it for a long time. You don't need the guys to be an everyday starter. They can just fill in, be that leadership presence, and put up a decent amount of stats.
So are there any guys on this list of names that you think can make an impact, an immediate impact, that still have a little bit of juice left in the tank? And are there any guys that you think are just done, washed? Give me a name.
A player we just talked about, Amari Cooper, I think in the right system with a preseason under his belt. I think I said spring training before I meant preseason.
Oh my gosh. Preseason. That baseball mindset.
I know, literally. Amari Cooper, get a whole offseason under your belt with one team. I feel like if he's in the right situation, he could produce.
Yeah, I like Amari. I was just telling you before we started recording, I have a feeling Dallas might go for a guy like that if they can get him on a decent bargain deal. The problem, though, when you see some of these big names, usually there's a reason why they're in here. It's typically because of age, bad injury, or just diminished production over the past season or two. So I see a guy like Nick Chubb. I think he's toast, man. Like, it sucks to say. That's my downturn guy. Yeah. Like, I don't think he's making an impact wherever he goes. He played pretty poorly when he came back last season. It's tough though when you have a devastating leg injury and you're a running back. Not the first time he's done this. It happened to him twice, I think, in college. It's just hard to come back. Not only that, he's an aging running back. So, I would dissociate the name value with Nick Chubb at this point.
I got one more for you because you just mentioned running back. You mentioned Nick Chubb. One player who doesn't have an injury, great running back, Aaron Jones, had a fantastic year last year with the Vikings. He just hit 30. I know 30 is the fall off point where your milk expires, but I think 1 year, Aaron Jones could fill in, be a 2 running back role. Aaron Jones, target him. Veteran, still has some juice.
Okay. Aaron Jones. I don't know. 30 is a little old. I don't think he's going to be the bell cow anymore. All right, but we talked about some of the old heads. What about, there's some of the big name guys. Let's just go through a few. We have Devontae Adams, who is now on the market. He is an old head though, but he had a really good productive year with the Jets once he reunited with Rodgers down the stretch there. So he's a name that's available. I wouldn't even mind if the Cowboys called him. You have Chris Godwin, who's coming in off of a serious injury, the Achilles, but you'd think he might still be in his prime. But probably one of the bigger names, you got Milton Williams, defensive tackle from Philly, young dude, 26. He's probably going to get paid pretty well. Ronnie Stanley for our Baltimore fans. He's going to be available, 31 years old. What names are sticking out to you, though?
Yeah, I think DJ Reed, cornerback for the Jets. He's still 28 years old. I feel like that secondary was good until they had their coach fired in the early part of that year, and the defense kind of fell apart, but I don't think it was his fault. So I think that's a diamond in the rough there you could take a look at. Eagles edge rusher, Josh Sweat. I mean, he's 28. You need an edge rusher. He has an experience with a Super Bowl team, winning resume. Plug him in. A lot of good names here. I would say as a whole, it might be down compared to other free agencies. But these players are still going to get paid because the salary cap went up by $23.8 million up to a whopping $279 million. $279. So everyone's going to get paid a little more. You'll notice that a lot of big contracts on day one, I can imagine.
Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting class of free agent. You don't have like that coveted big name guy. It would have been T. Higgins. He would have been like the alpha wide receiver one if he were to be available. But there's not really that name where you're like, oh man, this is a dude that's just going to change the whole complexion of my team right now. But there's a lot of really solid players that can fill up some holes and really change the outlook in a collective way for teams. So we'll see how it all turns out in the next week or two, but kind of segueing and pegging. No, what the heck am I talking about? Pogo stick? I don't know.
I like it. Let's pogo stick in the fourth down. I like it.
Let's get in the fourth, man.
Heck yeah.
And let's put our GM caps on. I think we did this last year. We're going to bring it back here this year. And let's do some bargain shopping. So we have our name, our list of free agents. If you're the GM of your team and you're trying to just build up your roster, let's just say you have a lot of holes. So there's like a need in pretty much any position. Who are some guys that you're going to be targeting in like a bargain way? Like we're not talking about the guys that we expect to be signed day one that are going to get paid big time, but who are like some of the dudes that are off the radar that you're going to want to offer a contract to. So you give me a name, I'll give you a name, and we can kind of go from there.
So I went into my war room, and I have all these names on a dry erase board. The name I want for a deal, under the radar, gem, I'm circling Nick Bolton, linebacker for the Kansas City Chiefs. The guy's an every down linebacker. He played in Spagnuolo's system. He wore the mic on every play. He's a leader, captain. He's only 25 years old. Target him. He's not the top 10 players you might see on all these lists, but he's right there, top 20 player, perfect for any team.
Yeah, I like that. I think I've seen Dallas in the mix of potentially getting Nick Bolton. I mean, he was such a pivotal piece in their past few Super Bowl runs. It's kind of, I'd be surprised if he ends up hitting the market, to be honest with you. I have a feeling we're going to get some news maybe right after we release this podcast, honestly. It's like, oh, Nick Bolton got signed for an extension. They might not let him get to the market.
I have a feeling you're right, and there has been some moves made. We'll bring it up in the 2-minute drill, but they are making cap space in Kansas City. Who do you have targeted as a gem you would approach rapidly when free agency opens?
Okay, so rapidly, Talona Hofunga. Taluna. Did I pronounce his name? That's just sad.
I would say Talanoa if I had to guess. Talanoa.
The fun guy. I mean, this is a guy who was an all-pro in his second season. Obviously, people are going to compare him to Troy Polamalu from like the French Polynesian background, the long hair too. But he played in a similar style to Polamalu, just an aggressive, big-hitting safety. After that all-pro season, though, he's dealt with some pretty inconsistent play after some serious injuries. So I think the 49ers might be writing him off a little bit. Some teams might be writing him off a bit. But the dude's only 25 still. He didn't play much last year because of the injuries. And when he did come, he blew some coverages, just wasn't really good in pass protection. I still think that this is a guy that can be a huge difference maker. We've seen in the past that he has the ability to be an all-pro. So why not give a guy like this a chance? He's still young. I mean, he's still in his prime, hopefully. Even with the serious injuries, you're just kind of banking on and bargaining. Maybe he can replicate something that he did not too long ago. And if he doesn't, oh well, maybe we got him on a cheap deal.
Yep, and like all these names we're about to mention, they're young, but they're not just coming off the draft. So you have some film, you have a body of work, you've seen what they're capable of, and you've seen that can perform on the NFL level. So there's some solace in that. Another name I have for you here, Colts defensive end. You're like, the Colts, who the heck do they have a defensive end that's coming out? Dayo Adeyingbo. I hope I'm saying that as right as well.
You see our challenge with this, Antonino. Let's pick the guys who we just cannot pronounce their names yet.
But we did our research.
Yeah,
right. We did our research. We're trying to find the gems. You don't have to know how to pronounce their name. These are the guys that are going to bring you production on a bargain deal. This guy had 34 combined sacks and hits over the last 2 years as a part-time player. So you scope out a guy like this, it could be plug and play and give you that production when it becomes a full-time player if you wanted. So that's my second guy I got.
I like that. We'll have to see how that turns out. And I remember last year you picked, I think, was it Gesicki, right?
Yeah.
That was the dude that and the Bengals ended up signing Gesicki.
Yep.
And he had a decent year.
He did well.
He did not do what you thought.
No, he did 50-some catches, had a bunch of touches. He had a great year. He outperformed absolutely.
No, you were saying that he was going to be an all-pro and all this nonsense, that he was going to have a career year. And then you kept trying to justify it afterward. You're like, oh, he had a career. It wasn't his best season, but it was a good season.
Debatable. But who else do you have? We both could throw out one more names out there.
Okay. I was going to say Asante Samuel Jr. He's 25, injured a bit last year, inconsistent play as well. But again, a young guy. Early round draft pick, but I'm not going to go with him. I'm going to do a complete U-turn on you. Justin Fields. It's not every day you get a 26-year-old mobile quarterback that's been in just inconsistent systems. He was unfortunately with Eberflus in Chicago. He just hasn't been trusted to really command an offense yet. I think he could have the same kind of career trajectory and arc that guys like Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold have. You put him into the right system with somebody that can incubate his talents and make him not think too much. I think that's a part of his problem. He just needs quick decisions, put him in a quick scheme where it's like, a little bit of zone read action, let him make some quick choices, get him comfortable in it. I think Justin Fields has all the talent still. He just needs to be in the right place.
I'm willing to bet someone's going to give him a shot. One last name. I know we got to round this out. One last name. I'm excited for all the bargain deals. We're the GMs. How often can we be GMs?
Yeah, no, I feel you. Go for it.
Here we go. Last one. Wild card play here. Hometown guy, Chase Young, played with the Commanders, went to the Saints. 2 teams already. He's only 25 years old, but he's very young. He's 25. His birthday's in April. He's going to be 26. High draft pick. I know they question his motor, but it's a wild card play. I think he could really come out and perform for a new team next year. I
don't hate it. I mean, when you have a top 5 pick that's just been bouncing around team. His career, though, reminds me a lot like Jadeveon Clowney. Similar type thing. Top 5 pick. Tons of talent, but just hasn't been able to live up to the hype. All right, man. Well, I'm just going to put it out there. Chain movement. Let us know who are some of the guys that you're excited to see potentially sign with your team. Drop it in the comments on Spotify or on Instagram. We want to hear from you too. And with that, Antonino, let us hop into the 2-minute drill and cover all the news that's been happening here lately.
That's right. And on top of the news, the NFL listened to our podcast and they are going to install an electronic system to determine first downs next year. So goodbye to the chain gang.
Philadelphia made Saquon Barkley the highest paid running back in NFL history, signing him to a 2-year, $41 million extension, just a season removed from him signing with the team. Crazy.
The Kansas City Chiefs have traded offensive lineman Joe Thuney to the Chicago Bears for only a 2026 4th-round draft pick.
New Orleans cut ties with former Detroit 18 Russian touchdown man Jamal Williams after 2 pretty unproductive seasons behind Alvin Kamara.
The Dallas Cowboys, CeeDee Lamb, restructured his contract to clear up $20 million in cap space.
Some unfortunate news, though, for Tank Dell. He had to undergo ACL surgery on Wednesday, and that will likely cause him to miss the entire 2025 season.
More Houston Texan wide receiver news. Nico Collins. He performed a simple restructure to save the team $9.8 million.
Well, the Bears were not done bolstering up their offensive line this week. They made a trade for Rams guard Jonah Jackson, giving up a 6th-round pick in exchange for him.
The New York Jets, as we said, released Davante Adams. Key point, that saves them $29.9 million.
The Eagles weren't done re-signing and signing extensions to guys. They went ahead and gave Zach Bond, the all-pro linebacker from this season, a 3-year, $51 million contract with $34 million guaranteed.
Well, the Eagles paid one guy, but they had to release cornerback James Bradbury, which freed up some space for Zach Bond.
The Seahawks were also releasing guys. Wide receiver Tyler Lockett, done in Seattle after 10 seasons. Not only that, though, DK Metcalf shortly announced that he wants to be traded, requesting a trade from the Seahawks. They could be down 2 of their top receivers in this offseason.
The Las Vegas Raiders just signed defensive end Max Crosby to a mega extension, 3 years, $106.5 million deal with $91 million guaranteed, the highest contract ever for a non-quarterback.
Wow, and to make space for that, a big contract that Max Crosby got, they went ahead and cut Gardner Minshew after 1 season with the team.
And last but not least, the Jacksonville Jaguars are planning to release wide receiver Christian Kirk, clearing about $10 million of cap space.
Wow, that's big news too. Jeez.
Ooh, tons of moves, rapid fire. I expect them all to continue all the way until next Wednesday when free agency opens up. And we'll be here to give you all the news as you know. So boys and girls, we'll see you on the next one. The next one is the best one.
Yep. Thank you for joining us for another episode of First and 30. Until next week, remember, when your number's called, no matter the odds,
let's go for it.